going on? We're back on Small Ball. It's our first live show in about 2 months. So we're back. I'm going to notify the world that we're live. Just make sure everybody knows, right? For our millions and millions of viewers, they got to be in the loop about what's going on. Thank you for joining me as I here notify the world that we're live for the first time in about 2 months. So that's what we're working with here. And again, we're going to try to keep this show to a half hour. Okay, 30 minutes. It's something that I've had requested a couple of times. People are like, you know what? Let's do a shorter show. It's better for you. It's better for us. So we're going to go with it and see how it goes. So we're going to go 30 minutes today, half as long as usual. And we'll go from there. We'll see how it goes. So thank you again for joining me. Just notified the world. So let's get into it. Now, I want to get something out of the way. I want to start the show with this. I want to get out of the way because I don't want to talk about it anymore. A lot of people have asked me about it. They say, Tristan, what do you think about the whole Fernando Tatis Jr. business, right? I'm actually going to sit back, get nice and comfortable here so that I don't lose sight of what's going on here. So I've had a lot of people say, you know what do you think about this? Because I know, and many of you know, that I'm not really with this, let the kids play stuff. I'm not really for that stuff. I mean, I'm not. I can appreciate some of the newer, more revolutionary ways of playing the game, right? But when it comes down to it, you guys know, everybody knows, I'm not really with that, right? So a lot of people have asked me, what do you think? So here's what I think. I'm going to try to explain it as crisply as I can. First off, do I think that Fernando Tatis Jr. was in the wrong for swinging 3-0 up by 9 runs? No. Okay? I haven't really heard anybody explicitly say that was a wrong thing to do, right? Chris Woodward, the Rangers manager, alluded to it. Jace Tingler, the Padres manager, alluded to it being potentially somewhat iffy, but I've never heard somebody come out and say he should not have done that explicitly. And the vast majority of people have said he's completely okay to do that. I agree. I've played baseball for a very long time. I have never heard of that, to be quite honest with you. I have never heard that you can't swing on 3-0 up by a significant margin. That's just not, the thing about it to me is like the pitcher is pitching, right? And he gets to 3 balls. If he knows in his head that the batter's not going to swing because of a situation in a game, right? That's just changing the way the game is played. And that's just not, it's different than not running or bunting up by 9 runs, let's say. Because when you start changing the way at-bats are handled, right, does that morph and does that carry over into other things, right? So I think an at-bat is an at-bat. Pitch the at-bat, hit, the at-bat. I think this might be a little bit. There we go. That's better. Hit the at-bat, right? You know what? Just, it's okay. But the stuff that came out afterwards, oh my goodness, I can't even believe. I can believe it, but it's like, are we for real? Like, do we need to really go there? Like, Fernando Tatis himself came out and said, you know what? You're right. Learning experience. My bad, which was awesome. Okay? For the people out there that are saying he should not have apologized, you are incorrect. He handled it as best as he could. He handled it perfectly. Jace Tingler, the Padres manager, handled it very well. Also, he then changed his opinion, which was kind of weird, but I think he did a really good job of playing both sides, supporting his team and his players, and also sharing his honest opinion. Fernando Tatis was perfect. He's a young player. He comes out. He didn't even really apologize. He just said it's learning experience. I thought it was perfect. Okay. Now, so many people are applying this situation to the entire let the kids play movement. Okay. So many people are applying this to rigidity of longtime baseball coaches and media people. And that just doesn't make any sense. Okay. This one instance is very odd. I've never heard of a 3-0 swing being controversial in any way. But that you cannot apply that, in my opinion, to running when you're up by a lot, right? Bat flips. These are complete separate entities. Okay. And in the grand scheme, people like this has become the poster moment of baseball lifers being too rigid and too down on the fun of the game and what have you. Okay. I don't think that that's fair. I think that this instance, kind of strange. Don't blame Fernando at all. But the people coming out and saying these things, like, just because one manager, maybe two, and nobody else had a problem with this moment, that does not make the bat flipping, the showboating, the not hustling any more acceptable. That stuff takes away from the game. Swinging on 3-0 does not take anything away from the game. Many would argue it adds to the game. Bat flipping takes away from the game. I say this all the time. 2015 ALCS Blue Jays Rangers Game 5. What do you remember? The Jose Bautista bat flip. Not the incredible game that preceded it. Not the Blue Jays comeback after a 3-run Rangers 7th inning. Not that. Not the one of the best games of the 21st century. You remember the bat flip. That's why it takes away from the game, not adds to it. So that's why I don't think you can compare and correlate that instance with the entire new era of baseball. Now, on a similar note, I should say, I would like to say this as well, and I need to say this because it bothered me so much, and it still does, because I see this stuff on Instagram all over the place. Can we please stop giving any credit whatsoever to Joe Kelly for a pathetic, childish, uncreative move that he made? Think about what he actually did. I'm, of course, talking about when he threw at a couple of Astros hitters, and then after striking out, Carlos Correa walked off the field and made some faces at him. Just think about this for a second, okay? Joe Kelly sees the Astros come into town, or rather, he actually goes there. So, playing the Astros. Astros on the schedule coming up, okay? This is what he did. He said, when I come into the game, the first time I come into the game against Houston, I'm going to throw at their hitters, and if I get a strikeout, which I probably will because he has about 15 strikeouts per 9 innings, I'm going to make pouty faces at them. I'm going to do that. I'm planning that in advance. He obviously planned that in advance. That is not creative. That is not baller. It's not clever. I like nothing about it. Okay? A lot of stuff that I see, memes, players talking about the Astros, a lot of it is funny, a lot of it is creative, a lot of it is warranted. This is not creative. It is not funny. It is childish. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not quite understanding why he's such a hero for doing something so obvious and planned in advance. Joe Kelly has been one of the least likable players in Major League Baseball for years. And just because now it's the Astros, he becomes a hero with a mural of himself in Los Angeles, the second biggest city, baseball city in the country. It doesn't make any sense. And that bothered me a lot. It didn't make any sense. I know the Astros cheated. I know you all are upset about it. But can we please get over it? Understand that their title is not a real title, right? Accept that and get over it. Can we please get over it? I guarantee you that if the Astros had lost that championship, your life would be no different. Okay? Can we get over that? Can we play baseball? I understand players coming out saying creative, funny things, taking shots at the Astros. I get that. I'm for that. That's funny. That's creative. That's cool. What Joe Kelly did was just stupid. Now, to our regularly scheduled program. Here we go. I want to say another quick thing before I get to our meat of our discussion today. Okay. The Milwaukee, I saw an interesting stat today. The Milwaukee Brewers, okay? When I think of the Milwaukee Brewers, I think of a good roster with a very good player in Christian Yelich, a storied franchise. I mean, we're talking Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, Rollie Fingers, okay? And I see today on MLB.com, I was reading an article, they have the lowest winning percentage, series winning percentage in postseason history. The lowest, okay? They've actually only made the World Series one time. Made the World Series one time. We're talking Paul Molitor, Rollie Fingers, Robin Yount, the whole nine, right? Now, for the last 5, maybe even 10 years, they've had a good roster with subpar pitching. Christian Yelich, right now, Christian Yelich, okay, Corbin Burns is going off last year. Yasmani Grandal, they have players. Their defense is good. Omar Narvaez behind the plate is good. Offense, hitting, they hit for power, they hit for contact. Josh Hader, back end, their bullpen's very strong. I didn't know what it was. They never win big games. And we're getting to the point in the season now where not a lot of games really matter that much. But the series this week that does is Brewers-Reds. So I've been following Brewers-Reds very closely. Very good series. Pretty much the winner of the series makes the playoffs. And there's just one thing missing from the Brewers, and I could not figure it out, and I think I have. Because consistently for the last 10 years, they've had a good roster in their pitching, and at times, this year as an example, their offense has underperformed and struggled. Okay? And it leads me to believe that the only option remaining is that they have to move off of Craig Counsell. I don't think they're well coached. And I like Craig Counsell. I do. But think about it. If pitching staffs are consistently underperforming year after year after year, they never are able to put it together in the rotation. They've had good catchers. I don't know if it's Craig Counsell. I don't know if it's his staff. The Brewers have had players for 10 years. They are not exciting at all. They're not fun to watch. They have no energy. Since Carlos Gomez left, they're just a completely boring team. With Christian Yelich, the MVP, with Yasmani Grandal, with Lorenzo Cain a couple of years back. Maybe it's time to move off of Craig Counsell. Maybe it is. It's the only option left. That's the only option left. So, with that said, I'm now going to get into our final segment of the day. So the playoffs are coming up next week, okay? And there are a lot of teams that are going to be in these playoffs, a lot more than usual, 16 teams. Now, that is more than half of the teams in the league. So realistically, I don't think all of them have really you can say they have a chance, but I don't think realistically a lot of them really have a chance to go all the way and win the title. So I'm going to give you 8 teams from the NL, 8 teams from the AL. The 16 teams that if the season ended today would make the playoffs. I'm going to give you, in my opinion, their biggest flaw. Number one biggest. And I'm going to say, is it no big deal? Is it insurmountable, or is it somewhere in the middle? Okay, so I'm going to rank it 1 to 3. And there are teams that have a flaw that they just will not be able to overcome this season. There are teams that's their biggest flaw, and then there's something in the middle. So here we go. I'm going to start off with the American League. The American League, everything sort of evens itself out, right, at some point, okay? And now the American League is shaping up pretty much how we would have expected at the beginning of the season. So I'll go from 8 to 1. The Toronto Blue Jays, their biggest flaw, in my opinion, is they're too young. And it sounds obvious, but I don't think their offense is too young. I think Vlad, I think Bo Bichette, I think Cavan Biggio, I think they're all experienced enough to get the job done. All 3 of them have had 2 of them had Hall of Fame fathers. Another in Dante Bichette, a very good player. So I don't consider them to be inexperienced, right? There's a very big distinction between young and inexperienced. I think their offense is fine. I can see them performing in the postseason. Their pitching, on the other hand, and this was the youngest team in 2019 by average age. Their pitching is too young, right? Their bullpen right now is relying off Anthony Kay, Sean Reed Foley. Their staff now, they add Ryu, which makes them a lot more dependable. But we're talking Ryan Barucki. Like, these are guys that just kind of came up a couple years ago and have had success and have never even sniffed the postseason. So I think their pitching staff is too young, and I think it's insurmountable because Hyunjin Ryu has been good, not great this year, and they don't have a dominant staff, obviously, right? The only way to combat that is having a bullpen that you can rely on. They don't have that either. So I can't see them overcoming that in the postseason. Now, Cleveland Indians. This is a team that I don't think is that flawed, actually. But the one glaring thing, and it's pretty obvious, is they're very, very thin. Very thin. If you look at their lineup, they have multiple guys batting under 200. They have no depth. If their top offensive players, Lindor, Ramirez, and I guess Franmil Reyes, don't show up when the postseason comes, they're done because they don't have anything behind them. I like Cesar Hernandez a lot. I like Tyler Naquin better than most. I like Delino DeShields better than most. And I think Carlos Santana has something left. But if Lindor struggles, if Ramirez struggles, there's not a lot behind them to fill in the gap. So their biggest issue is they're thin. Do I think that that's a big deal? No. I really like the Indians this year. Like I said, their pitching in many ways is overrated, in large part to their excellent pitching coaching. That makes sense, yeah. And catching tandem of Roberto Perez and now Sandy Leon, which is excellent. And I picked them to do pretty well at the beginning of the season. Now, they trade away Mike Clevinger, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because they are a contending team. I don't think they think that they are. But they can easily replace Mike Clevinger because, like I said, a lot of these pitchers are a function of what they have in Cleveland. And I don't think Mike Clevenger is going to be what he was in Cleveland in San Diego. So they can pretty much throw in whoever they want. And I think that they will produce on the mound. They have to get production out of their top guys to be successful in the postseason. But we're talking Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Carlos Santana, Cesar Hernandez, all guys who have shown up in big spots in the past. So I don't think that their lack of depth is a big deal. The Houston Astros. A lot of people sort of projected that they would be held back by the whole scandal, that they wouldn't be the same, and they were right. I agreed with those people. They look, it shows in the way they play. They have no energy. They play with no excitement whatsoever. They lose Verlander for the year. Obviously, Garrett Cole is no longer there. George Springer has mightily struggled this year, so has Jose Altuve. And they play with no energy. And now, they're excellent in their home ballpark. They will not get to play a single postseason game there because they will be on the road in the wild card series. And even if they get further than that, they will be in the bubble. So there's no it factor here. They've lost all of that completely. And I think that, amongst other things, is insurmountable. I can't see them really winning the title this year. They just have no pep in their step. The New York Yankees, I've said this many, many, many times. Their biggest problem is not their injuries. Every single year, the Yankees are absurdly injured, and everybody freaks out, and then magically, or not magically, everybody's back in early September. And that's the case this year. They are playing it safe. They're taking every precaution that they can to keep these young and pretty fragile players healthy. Now everyone's back, as they are every year, with the exception of Tommy Kahnle to Tommy John, and obviously Luis Severino. But now everyone's back. They're fine. The biggest problem, like I've said many times, is they don't defend behind the plate. Now they could if they decide to go with Erik Kratz, but they won't. I've said a couple times now. The other day, Gary Sanchez hits a game-tying home run against the rival Boston Red Sox, and they go on to win the game, and everybody's texting me, blah, blah, blah. That's probably the worst thing that's happened to them all season, because now Gary Sanchez is probably going to start every game in crunch time. That's a half joke, but that's I'm kind of serious about that. Now Gary Sanchez is going to play, and that hurts them a lot, because 8 of 9 postseason series last year were won by the better defensive catcher. Seriously, go look at it. The better defensive catcher, we talked about this on this show, won their series 8 of 9 times last season. Think about the Yankees as an example, right? The only series that they won was when Gary Sanchez got to face Mitch Garver, the actual worst defensive catcher, the only one probably worse than Gary Sanchez. And that was the only series they won. So that's a good example right there. Is it insurmountable? No, because they have a lot of pieces, and some of those pieces actually play catcher. Like I said, they have Erik Kratz, Kyle Higashioka, which is not ideal going into a playoff series, but they have some depth behind the plate. They have other pieces that can help them overcome that, maybe. I'm not saying it's 100%, but it's really, really hard to overcome bad defensive catching. So it's in their court. It's in Aaron Boone's court if they give him any leeway. I don't know how that dynamic is set up. I don't know if that's coming from the top. I don't know if he makes all those decisions. But they have the pieces behind the plate, and they have the pieces elsewhere to maybe make up for it if they don't decide to move off of Sanchez. So I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? If Gary Sanchez plays, I think they're going to have a tough time overcoming it, but they have so much talent that I think they could, but it's going to hurt them. Number 4, the Minnesota Twins. They're really not a clutch team. They're really not. They don't have they're kind of young, but they're not that young anymore, and they've gained experience every year. They're a postseason level team. They have a really good manager in Rocco Baldelli, but they don't seem to ever get better on a year-to-year basis. I mean, all of these guys have been good, not great for a while. Eddie Rosario, Max Kepler, Miguel Sano, Byron Buxton, right? All these guys have been good, not great. Jose Barrios on the pitching side of things. Taylor Rogers struggled this year. I mean, I had him as my top closer coming into the season, and no longer. I mean, he had a rough year. I mean, he was okay, but definitely not what he was last year. And they have lost 13 straight playoff games against the Yankees and have faced the Yankees 6 times in the postseason in history. They've had 6 postseason series against them in history and have lost all 6. And that's likely who they're going to play in the first round. And it's not just the Yankees. I don't trust them in big games against any good team. So is it insurmountable? No, because they've gained a lot of experience. They are very talented. I like their intangibles. And they could overcome that. So I don't necessarily think that's a big deal. But if history is to repeat itself, they're done in 3 games against the Yankees. And if they don't manage to get home field, which right now they are in line to, but if those games are in Yankee Stadium, I don't think they have a chance. If it's in Minnesota, it's a good series. But they just don't seem to get it done in big spots. Josh Donaldson included, their newest addition. So not newest, but their newest big addition. The Oakland A's, this is not a very flawed team, but they don't have an ace, and that's very important in the postseason, as many of you know. I mean, who do they turn to when the Yankees throw out Garrett Cole or the Rays throw out any of their 3 guys, Glasnow, Snell, and Charlie Morton? Like, who do they have against Shane Bieber if they play them in the first round? Who do they have against any of these guys? And they don't match up. They don't have an ace. And it gets the job done in the regular season, right? When you're playing the Mariners and the Rangers and the Giants, who actually are decent this year, but and the Rockies, right? It gets the job done. But in the postseason, you face better hitters with better coaching, better all-around lineups, and you need a guy to really, and this is underappreciated, Game 1, Garrett Cole's on the mound, Justin Verlander's on the mound, Max Scherzer's on the mound. That is a terrible feeling to come into a series, get shut down, and know that you're going to have to face him later on in an even more important game. The A's don't have that, so I think that could hold them back. I think it's in the middle because they can overcome that. They've won a lot of games this year. They don't win playoff series ever. They're not clutch either. They're an analytically driven team, obviously, and I think that hurts them in the playoffs. I mean, they made a movie. Literally, they made a movie, and we're going to talk about this more. They made a movie and wrote a book about their genius. The genius way that they run their organization. Well, they haven't won a playoff series since that book came out. So, and in that movie, the story of the movie, they actually lost their only playoff series. So I think analytics hurts them in the postseason like it does many teams, and they don't have an ace. Can they overcome it? Yes. They have a really good defense, which can help the pitching. They have a pretty good bullpen, I would say. Trinan's been ridiculous. Outside of that, they're too young, but I think they're talented in the bullpen. Coaching is hit and miss, and they have a good lineup to support it. So can they overcome it? Yes, but it could get in their way. The Chicago White Sox. There are 2 really big flaws, but the one that's going to hurt them the most is they don't make enough contact. And I've said this for years with the White Sox, and they've done better this year than I thought, okay? But it's a short season. I think over the course of the season, right now they're 5th in strikeouts, and I think they're actually overperforming in that department right now. All of their new young hitters are big swing and miss guys. that is really, really, really difficult to win with in the postseason when you're facing those pitchers that we just talked about, like Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander. Very, very difficult to strike out that much and win playoff series. It happened to the Yankees last year. 8 of 9, another 8 of 9, but 8 of 9 series last year in the postseason were won by the team who struck out fewer times. 8 of 9 times. Seriously. The only series where the team with more strikeouts won was the World Series, and they won it on, a 7th inning 2-run bomb that snuck out by about 2 feet. So 8 of 9 series last year were won by the team who made more contact. That, I think, will continue to be, of a similar pace. And they don't make enough contact. I mean, think about it. You have Moncada, Robert, Jimenez, none of these guys, Mazzara, Grandal, none of these guys I would trust with runner on third, less than 2 outs against Garrett Cole or Blake Trinan or anybody that throws harder than 95. Their other big flaw is worth mentioning. They are under 500, 11 and 15 against teams over 500. They're 23-5 against teams under 500. They're the only team on this list besides the Yankees, who haven't had anybody healthy pretty much all season, who is under 500 against winning teams. They're 11 and 15. They have pounded bad competition this year. That's why they're atop the AL, or second, I should say. They're 23-5 against losing teams, and they don't play any losing teams in the postseason. So that's worth noting as well. And then the Tampa Bay Rays. Their defense is not good enough. I predicted at the beginning of the season. Oh, I'm sorry. The White Sox, can they overcome their swing and miss? No. I don't see them as a championship team. I'm going to say that right now. I do not see the Chicago White Sox as a championship team in 2020. They don't make enough contact, and they don't beat good teams. I mean, I know that's 2, so that's kind of cheating, but I'll stick with 1. They don't make enough contact. I don't think they'll be able to overcome it, and I think they're getting worse in that area. They started off okay. Now they're really showing more of their true self, so they're actually worse than 5th right now. So no, I don't think they can overcome that. And the Rays defense, I said at the beginning of the year was going to be very, very bad, and I was right. I also said it was going to hold them back, and I was wrong about that. They've been okay. But I did say that the 60-game schedule helps them more than any other team. So in the postseason, will it hurt them? Yeah, I think so. Can they overcome it? Yeah, because they have guys that can swing it. They have a 3-man staff, which is very, very good, but with no rest days, that's really going to hurt them. I don't think they're particularly well coached either. I'm going to try to stick with one flaw, which I think their biggest is their defense, and that will hurt them way more than it did in the regular season. Their claim to fame this year was beating the Yankees, like 9 of 10 games by the Mike Ford-led Yankees. So I'm not sure against good teams their defense is going to be able to hold up. So it's in the middle. They can overcome it with, if their pitching stays consistent, if their bullpen stays healthy and consistent, and they're coached well by Kevin Cash, who has at times looked very good and at times not so much. And their offense has to swing it, and their defense I don't think is going to be very good, and I think that's going to hold them back. So it's somewhere in the middle for me. And that's going to do it for today's show. I didn't get to the NL. I do want to try to keep it around 30 minutes. My computer's dying anyway, so it's a good timing. So we'll do the NL at a later date. So thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend, and such. If you feel inclined to do so. Thanks so much for watching the first live show on Small Ball in about 2 months. So happy to be back. I hope you enjoyed. So yeah, have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your Tuesday. Probably not going to do a show tomorrow. I doubt it. But Thursday is a very, very viable option. So be on the lookout for that. I will let you know on Instagram. Follow the Instagram if you don't and you're able to. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend, all that good stuff. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. We'll do NL probably next show and a lot more playoff stuff to talk about. Watch Brewers Reds. It's a really fascinating series, amongst other series. So that'll do it for today's show. So thanks for tuning in. Have a good one. Peace.